The controversy trailing the comments of President Muhammadu Buhari at the just concluded Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in the United Kingdom is yet to die down. The president is accused of labeling majority of youths in the country lazy, a claim the presidency denies, insisting President Buhari's intended words were twisted. In this report, our correspondent Orelua Shonibare reports on the matter.
President Buhari, there's great interest in your thoughts on many issues, on investments in the northeast, on the continental free trade agreement. Feel free to take your pick, but would you like to take the microphone and leave us with a final thought from you?
We have a very young population. Our population is estimated conservatively to be 180 million. This is a conservative one. More than 60% of the population is below the age of 30. A lot of them haven't been to school, and they are claiming, that Nigeria has been an oil-producing country. Therefore, they should sit and do nothing and get housing, health care, education free.
The final thought that opened a Pandora's box of reactions, mostly against President Muhammadu Buhari's comments.
It is very unfair for the president to go out of the country and begin to say that the youth of this nation are lazy. The same youth that he was proud to use when he wanted power, when he was so desperate to be the president of this nation. He used the youth. He knew then they were not lazy. Even during his inaugural speech, he did thank the youth. And of course, what the social media did to ensure that he came into power.
If these children don't work in their productive age, when they get old, they will die. Because they will have nothing to fall back on.
But the president's spokesman rose to his defense to clarify his intended meaning.
If you look at Mr. President's words, his statement, in no place did he say Nigerian youths were lazy. That word lazy did not feature at all. It's an attempt at the marketing, but that attempt will not succeed, because Mr. President has a solid profile.
Although the word lazy was not mentioned, the inference is what has become the bone of contention. But dissecting the comments of the president, certain pointers can be traced to the issues on ground in Nigeria. In the northeast, there's a vast amount of children roaming the streets. No thanks to the Almajiri system that has set them apart from their families for guidance. Who is to be held responsible for how they turn out in future, especially if they fall into the wrong hands? The president also touched on the South-South, where the oil that feeds the nation comes from. Here, majority of the youth are without livelihood, largely because the environment has experienced a large amount of degradation, which has left them without work. Oil has been Nigeria's main selling point for decades, and this has had a negative impact on other sectors which receive little support for development. So this graph from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics showing a spike in the youth unemployment rate from 2015 to 2017 is not surprising. Education might not necessarily be gotten through universities, so perhaps the government, in trying to engage the youth positively, might need to look into setting up more technical colleges where skills can be acquired, so that any unengaged youth can have no one but themselves to blame if they fail to turn the opportunity provided into endless possibilities. Orelua Shonibare, Channels Television News.
Let's talk about this some more now. Channels Television's data analyst Babajide Ogusowo joins me now in the studio, and he has ice cream, I see.
Oh, yes. I'm right. It's been a very hot week, and especially with all these comments. So I think we need to cool off a bit and have something nice to discuss it with.
Yeah, I would love to have some, but I really have to go into the conversation now. There seems to be several interpretations to what the president has said. We've heard his spokesperson, Femi Adesina, make his own comments in defense of the president. But you find youths and others on social media really getting worked up about what the president said. So is it possible to actually get a balanced view on that comment?
I think it is. But we need to first of all look at where all of this started from. How many Nigerian youths did we have 6 decades ago, Amara? I'll share that information with you, and I think in a bit it will surprise you. But at the moment, like you said, we have chocolate and vanilla ice cream, and I have to give you one. Which do you prefer?
Both actually are my favorite.
You have to pick one. You have to pick one right now.
Okay, chocolate.
Okay, let's say I give you chocolate. But listen carefully to this. If I tell you that vanilla ice cream is better than chocolate, now that statement is neither true nor false. It depends on your viewpoints. And
it depends on your taste.
It depends on your taste. But that statement that vanilla ice cream is better than chocolate is neither true nor false. And so the president said Nigerian youths are lazy. That statement is neither true nor false. It depends on your viewpoint. And so tonight there are 3 reasons why Nigerian youths added all of these things together and said the president said Nigerian youths are lazy. Let's look at these 3 things. The first was the president had said Nigerian youths claiming. So he says they claim, a lot of them. Now, by that statement, a lot of them is used them, a third-person pronoun, which isn't the most optimistic word to use when referring to Nigerian youth. So that was the beginning of the gunpowder, when he said a lot of them. The word them again, a third-person pronoun. Again, within a statement, he then said, and they are claiming. Again, we understand that when the president uses words or pronouns such as them, they, it creates a lot of perception that he is condescending, even though that might not be his intention. Now, he ended that speech by saying, therefore, they should sit and do nothing. And so what Nigerian youth simply did was added the statement of a lot of them, added they are claiming, and added the third one, which was, therefore, they should sit and do nothing, and came up with that conclusion that the president said they are lazy. It's similar to when you say, if you add 1, 2, 3. If you add 1, 2, 3, Amara, you don't get 4. What you get is something bigger than 4. You get 6. And so the Nigerian youth added 1, they added 2, they added 3, and when the government was thinking they were going to get 4, they created something bigger than 4. They got 6, and that's how the conclusion of the president said the Nigerian youths are lazy. But again, it's similar to vanilla and chocolate.
It's neither here nor there.
It's neither here or there. But again, we have a bigger conundrum, and that is Nigerian youths today need help. The challenge is the government as well needs help. What do I mean by the Nigerian youths need help? The NBS tells us that we've got 85 million Nigerians in the labor force. The challenge is we've got 25 million Nigerians that have no education. So clearly, the Nigerian youths are looking up to the government for help. The Nigerian youths need that one word, education. But again, the government, Amara, the government also needs help. And the government is looking towards the Nigerian youth. Why do I say the government needs help? The CBN says last year, everybody that was employed in this country, total non-oil exports was only 629 million naira.
Yeah, but you know, Babajide, a lot of people are really not interested in this statistics. You know, people are looking for jobs. You mentioned that a lot of people are either not educated, and those who are educated are unemployed. That's a really high figure, 34 million. So how can the government help? You know, we've heard severally the government does not provide jobs. Government provides the enabling environment for jobs. So whose responsibility is it to provide jobs for Nigerian youth?
So that's serious talk. So let's take out the ice cream and talk some very serious talk. There are 3 ways the government can hit and get high impact with creating jobs. And I call them the 3 E's. The first is we need to look at our external trade policies. And by external trade policies, we specifically need to look at our Cabotage Act, the maritime law. How do we do business on sea? The second E is we need to look at and create an entrepreneurial fund, what I call a risk capital fund, whereby we're investing in new startups, and we understand that entrepreneurs will take risks, and not all of these risks will give us returns. So we need to create an entrepreneurial fund that we can invest in. The third is, more than ever before, we need to invest in education. And so if we do these 3 things, looking at our external trade policies, looking at creating an entrepreneurial fund to be able to fund new startups, and investing in education, we will be able to create more jobs for all the 34 million unemployed and underemployed Nigerians. But more importantly, Amara, we need to also understand what Ronald Reagan had said 3.5 decades ago. What was this? He had said, government isn't the solution to our problems, government is the problem. And so, right, like Ronald Reagan said, the real solution to our problems is for us to have good men and women.
But you know, very quickly, it's just a handful of Nigerian youth who actually do have meaningful employment, gainful employment. And you're talking about a lot more who are looking for something to do, a lot more who are out there on the streets. I suppose maybe the president was referring to those people, those who are trying to exploit the situation.
Every young Nigerian, whichever region you live in, once the president talks about a particular region, the assumption is talking about everybody. Today's challenge is even greater. We need to understand why and there's so many jobs available. And again, it starts by we understanding our history. Let's look at what had happened in 1960 quickly. In 1960, when the UK left us, they had a population of 52 million. Listen carefully to this. In 1960, the UK's population was bigger than ours. Our population then was only 45 million. Within the last 60 years, the population of the United Kingdom has grown from only 52 million to 66 million. Our population has grown from 45 million to approximately 200 million. And so when there are no jobs, people feel crime rate goes up. Not necessarily. That happens, but the bigger problem is when there are no jobs, a lot of youths are having sex. That is the truth. And so people need to start working smarter than working harder. And that is the evidence. Again, only 60 years ago, we need to understand the impact of this. 60 years ago, the UK's population has barely grown by 15 million. Ours has grown by over 100 million. And in the final analysis, even though we've talked about ice cream and chocolate, let's remember that government isn't the solution to our problems, like Ronald Reagan said. Government is the problem. The solution lies in we getting good men and good women.
And the conversation continues. Babajide, thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10.
Oh, the pleasure is mine.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
This for you.
Thanks a lot.